In this tutorial, we're looking at the kanji on page 5, starting with this one over here, which means to return home. That's its base meaning. Let's see how we use it in the actual verb. The verb is kaerimasu, and this kanji over here represents the first two hiragana, kae, and then the okurigana is rimasu. So you get kaerimasu. There it is, kaerimasu. And this kanji represents the first two hiragana, so you need to be careful. And it means to return home. In Japanese, you don't have to say to return home. You don't have to mention your home because this verb does it all. Kaerimasu is to return home. The left-hand part of this character has been simplified, and it now looks just like the katakana ri, which is convenient for us because it means return home. So that we can think of as the ri from return home. And this bit on the right-hand side, this is quite interesting. Let's have a look at what this is a picture of. Here we have it, and it's actually a picture of a hand on top. Let's see if we can have it a little bit clearer. A hand on top. There's a hand, there's a hand, you can see that clearly. Let's look at the slightly older characters. Okay, there's not much that you can see from the older characters. Okay, let's go back to the hand on top. Then underneath we've got two elements. This element here is the area that you're cleaning, and this in the middle, this shape here with a line down the middle, that's actually means a piece of cloth. So it's using your hand to clean this area with a piece of cloth, and that equals a broom. Let's have a look at our kakijun. So on the left hand side we've got ri. Again, that's a simplification of the actual older picture, so we won't worry what that means, but we will use it to remember that ri in this character stands for return home. Now on the right hand side, this element over here which looks like yo from yogurt, that's a hand. So you've got your hand on top. This here, which again looks like the top part of to lack, which we find in the kanji for drink. And then underneath this bit here, ich, and all the way around ni, with a line down the middle, that's a piece of cloth. So you've got a hand cleaning this area with a piece of cloth, so that right hand side means broom. Now the reason that the broom is there is because apparently in ancient China, when a couple were married, the groom would go to the bride's house, collect the bride, and take her home. They would return home, but with her she would bring her broom. That shows you how times have changed. So the broom and this here means return home. Our next kanji is over here, and the core meaning of this kanji is endeavor or try really hard. Now it's the first character in the pair of characters which mean to study and are pronounced benkyou. Now benkyou, study, is actually a noun, so to turn it into a verb we need to add the verb to do, which is shimasu. So that gives you benkyou shimasu, which equals benkyou shimasu, and it's pronounced benkyou shimasu. So we're looking at that first ben here, and it's quite a graphic story, so bear with me. Here we have the kanji over here. The left hand side, and it's quite easy to see actually, it's a female head, it's a stomach, and then two legs, and it's signifying the escape of the baby. So it's a baby being born. Now that left hand element, if we can have a look over there, this is what it looks like in modern times. That left hand element without the cut, this strength element, that actually means to escape, and that's what that baby is doing. So back to over here, so the baby is escaping, and then this element next to it means strength, and it's a hand, that there is a hand on the end of an arm signifying a bent arm, showing the muscles or power. So it's power added to this baby escaping, the two together. Well, in ancient times, one of the most graphic illustrations of endeavor, trying really hard, is giving birth to a baby. So that character became the representation of great effort and exertion or endeavor. Let's look at the kakijun. Now, in the modern stylized character, we've got this element here, ichi, ni, and that stands for the woman's head. It's the same as katakana ku. Katakana ku. You could perhaps think of it as, could you give me a hand, please? I'm having a baby. Here we've got the woman's stomach. It's again a square shape, so down on the left as always, cross and round all in one on the right. There's the baby in the middle, and we're going to cross it off. Now we've got that lady's human legs. Do you remember this element? This means human legs. Okay, so that's the woman giving birth. And over here, this is the muscle, the muscly arm. It's the same as katakana ka, and it means strength. Put them together, the strength that's needed to get that baby out. By the way, just remind you, this left-hand element on its own means to escape, doesn't it? And it's referring to what's happening to the baby. So the strength it takes to make that baby escape is great effort, endeavor, trying really hard. And that's the first part of studying, because that's the way you have to study when you're in Japan, with great effort. Next we have this character here, which means strong, and it's the kyo from benkyo. It's the second part of study. Let's just go up and have another look at benkyo. Here's the first part. That means try really hard, and then we add strong, and we get benkyo. So again, you don't just study in Japan with great huge effort, but also with great huge effort strongly. Benkyo. And of course we need the shimasu. Now we know what the left-hand side of kyo is. It's this here, and the stroke order is really quite tricky, so let's have a look. So you go across and down all in one, ich. Then left to right is ni. And down here, like a 5, is sang. Now we know exactly what that left-hand side means. That means a bow, as in a bow and arrow. And the way that I remember it is because if you were to do a sort of dotted line around like this, then that actually makes a shape just like the curvy part of a bow. So that there is the bow. That makes sense that that's in the character for strong. Let's just get rid of that drawing. But over here, this is a little harder to understand. On the top, we've got a katakana mu. That's not there for any particular reason. It's actually a simplified form of a much more complicated picture. But underneath, we have a very easily recognizable kanji. This on its own means insect, and it was originally part of the character, but I haven't been able to find out why, but we're going to have to make a story. So we've got a bow, then we've got katakana mu, then we've got an insect. Now the insect is represented here by this central square shape across and down on the right, all in one. And then we've got the line down the middle and 2 strokes representing a wriggly worm. So there we've got a wriggly worm. Let's look at what that originally looked like, and you can see how that was derived. There we have it. It looks a little different, doesn't it, in the olden days, but you can quite clearly see how it was a sort of a wriggly, wormy type thing. This one looks quite similar to the one we use today. So we've got that element there, which could be its head, and we've got the wriggly bit there. So that's a worm or an insect. Now the tricky bit is to connect all 3 of these in a story, which is going to help you remember that it means strong. So we've got a bow on the left, we've got katakana mu on the top right, and then we have an insect, and we put it all together to make strong. I'm going to let you make up a story for that. Now I'm sure you could make up a much better story than mine, but if you can't think of something good, then perhaps you could use this. It takes a strong man to take his bow and move up quietly to shoot that little worm or that little insect right in the middle. It takes a strong man, strong, pronounced kyo. Our last kanji on this page is the kanji over here, which has the core meaning of speak. And we have to go up a little to see the word in its entirety. Here it is, to speak, uses the core character here, and it's pronounced hana. And then we need to add the okurigana shimasu, hana shimasu. Be a little careful with this verb because it's not a noun combined with shimasu, the verb to do. It's actually a whole verb in its own right, pronounced hanashimasu. It's coincidence only that the shimasu on the end is the same as the separate verb shimasu, meaning to do. I think we can see already an element there that we're familiar with, but let's have a look at the right hand side to see how this character developed. Now this is the right hand element of the kanji to speak, and it actually represents a tongue. You can see you've got a mouth there at the bottom, and out here, I suppose if you think of a snake's tongue, it works best, but it's like a forked tongue coming out here of the mouth. So that is a tongue. The left hand side we already know. And here it is. It's that element meaning word, isn't it? And it goes blah, 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 blah. And all of that comes out of the mouth shape down on the left, cross and round on the right, left to right to close it off. And this is the stylized form of that forked tongue. So down on the top, across in the middle, and down. That looks very much like the katakana chi, doesn't it? So you might want to think of that tongue being poked out with a chi sound. Down on the left, around on the right, close off, and that gives us our mouth. So there's our mouth with our tongue poking out and our word. And I guess that's quite logical that you would put tongue and word together to make the character speak. You can even think of it as speaking in tongues.